Stop. Forget what you think you know about regional politics. Because right now, in West Africa, a dangerous, calculated game is being played. The pieces are not just military hardware or lines on a map. They are the lives of 11 Nigerian soldiers, trained men in uniform, who are being held on foreign soil. Their only hope for freedom is now reportedly linked to the most explosive, emotional political case in Nigeria today, Nnamdi Kanu. This is not diplomacy. This is leverage. This is a cold test of will between two nations. And the crisis has created a geopolitical standoff that is pushing West Africa to its breaking point. This is the story of how a routine flight turned into an international hostage crisis, and why the silence from the corridors of power is the loudest warning sign of all. It began quietly, as true crises often do. A Nigerian Air Force C-130 aircraft, a heavy-duty symbol of Nigerian might, is in the air. We are told the official reason for the landing in Burkina Faso was simple, a precautionary landing. Pilots do this. It is a technical necessity, a standard hiccup. But the C-130 did not land in the Burkina Faso of a few years ago. It landed in a country undergoing a profound, radical political shift. The 11 military personnel who stepped off that plane were identified. They were taken into custody, and the routine check simply never ended. Imagine the confusion, the initial annoyance that must have turned into confusion, then mounting dread. These are not tourists. These are not diplomats. They are soldiers. They represent the state. They have families waiting, and they were not let go. A few days of detention is an inconvenience. Weeks of detention is a threat. It sends a message, spoken or unspoken. Your authority stops at our border. We are in control now. To understand this high-stakes detention, you must understand the man who made it happen, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Traoré is not a traditional diplomat. He is part of a new, uncompromising generation of military leaders in the Sahel who have rejected the old rules of engagement. For years, West African foreign policy operated under a quiet understanding, a nod to Nigeria's regional power, a deference to regional protocols. Traoré shattered that understanding. Since his rise to power, his message has been relentless, sovereignty above all else. He has spoken fiercely against what he sees as foreign interference and has fostered a posture of bold, fearless independence that resonates deeply with young, frustrated Africans. In the mind of this new leadership, a Nigerian military plane making an unscheduled stop is not just a flight mishap. It is an opportunity. It is a test. And by holding those men, Traoré is doing two things. He is solidifying his image as a defiant leader at home, and he is sending a clear, cold message to Abuja. The rules of West African power have changed. In the early days, Nigeria tried the quiet approach. Diplomats reached out. Calls were made behind closed doors. The slow, measured dance of West African diplomacy began, hoping to smooth over a technical error. No threats. No loud statements. The goal was to avoid embarrassment. But as the days turned into weeks, the silence from Ouagadougou became a shout. The soldiers remained detained. The official explanation, the precautionary landing, was openly questioned. Rumors started to circulate among Nigerian military families and political analysts. Why are they still there? What is the real demand? Then came the information that sent a shockwave through the Nigerian capital. It was no longer about a flight plan. Behind the closed-door discussions, a subject had reportedly been introduced that shifted the entire geopolitical dynamic. It wasn't about trade. It wasn't about border security. It was about Nnamdi Kanu. The soldiers were being used as collateral. Their freedom, their safety, was being tied to the release of Nigeria's most consequential political prisoner. The confrontation was now officially underway. To truly grasp the magnitude of this leverage, you must understand who Nnamdi Kanu is. He is not simply an activist. He is a symbol. To his massive base of supporters, Kanu represents resistance, the promise of self-determination, and a rejection of perceived historical injustice. His detention, which has lasted years and been the subject of countless legal battles and international attention, is a raw, open wound in the Nigerian body politic. The case fuels hope, anger, and deep division among communities and even within families. The Nigerian government has struggled for years to manage this case, knowing every decision, every delay, every court date. risks igniting massive internal backlash. And now, Traoré has walked onto this minefield and seized the pin. By linking the release of Nigerian soldiers, a matter of national pride and military duty, to the release of Kanu, a matter of profound domestic sensitivity, Traoré is forcing Nigeria to choose between two unthinkable options. It turns a foreign policy crisis into an agonizing internal dilemma. This move is not emotional for Traoré. It is cold, hard strategy. He understands leverage better than many of his peers. From his perspective, the advantages are enormous. First, domestic image. He appears fearless to his own people, proving he can stand up to the giant of West Africa, Nigeria. This strengthens his revolutionary image. Second, regional respect. He demands a seat at the table. No longer is Burkina Faso merely a dependent state. It is a state that can inflict political pain and demand concessions. Third, pressure point. He knows the Nigerian government cannot tolerate seeing its uniformed men formally charged and imprisoned in a foreign country. The international humiliation alone would be devastating. He is playing a dangerous game of delay. Every extra day those 11 soldiers remain detained, the tension in Abuja increases. Every new rumor about their fate raises anxiety. He is not using noise. He is using silence and weighting his weapons. He is daring Nigeria to blink first. Now, look at Nigeria's position. It is walking a tightrope with an abyss on either side. On one hand, there is the immediate, non-negotiable responsibility to bring its soldiers home. These are men who were on duty, and their safety is a matter of profound national concern. To leave them at risk is to betray the trust of every soldier and military family. On the other hand, there is the precedent. If Nigeria concedes to this form of blackmail, if it allows a sensitive domestic judicial matter to be influenced by foreign pressure, it sets a devastating standard. Every neighboring country, every internal group, could try the same tactic in the future. Nigeria's power would look less like strength and more like weakness. The government's silence is not indifference. It is calculated caution. React too aggressively, and Traoré has an excuse to escalate the crisis further, possibly endangering the soldiers. React too softly, and Nigeria appears weak to the entire region. The leaders in Abuja are trapped between national pride and strategic responsibility. The situation is now reaching a critical tipping point. Reports suggest that the Traoré government is advancing towards formal charges and the very real possibility of prison sentences for the detained Nigerian military personnel. If those 11 soldiers are sent to a Burkinabe prison, the entire crisis changes its nature. It is no longer a misunderstanding or a diplomatic delay. It becomes a hostile action with immediate, long-term consequences. For Nigeria, this would be a deep national shock. No regional power can tolerate the sight of its uniformed men behind foreign bars under political circumstances. For Burkina Faso, it would be a signal of absolute firmness. It would tell the world that Traoré is willing to go further than anyone expected. But strength carries risk. Once prison becomes a reality, trust collapses. Future dialogue will start from a place of deep animosity, potentially chilling military and economic cooperation for decades. This is the point where the diplomatic rope is pulled so tight that it risks snapping entirely. This crisis is a microcosm of a larger, evolving story in African history. The era of quiet deference is ending. Younger, frustrated leaders are asserting a new, more aggressive vision of sovereignty, often challenging the established regional powers. For decades, Nigeria, as the regional giant, upheld a certain order. This standoff with Traoré tests that order like never before. This story matters not just for the 11 men and 1 prisoner, but because it is setting a precedent. It will define how far a smaller nation can push a regional power before retaliation. What cost a larger nation is willing to pay to maintain its image. How easily a domestic political issue can be weaponized in international relations. For the everyday Nigerian, this raises deeply uncomfortable questions. Should soldiers ever be used as leverage? And what does this say about the fragile state of unity in the regional bloc? As we conclude, there is no public resolution. There is only pressure, tension, and a growing fear. The clock continues to tick. This story will define the immediate future of West African security. It will end in one of 2 ways. Compromise. Dialogue prevails. A careful, damaging, but necessary compromise is made, and the soldiers return home, likely after an incredibly difficult political decision regarding Kano. Confrontation, pride takes over, the soldiers are charged, and the relationship between Nigeria and Burkina Faso freezes, potentially pulling other regional players into the fallout. Whatever happens next, one thing is clear. The next move will be a powerful lesson in African realpolitik. The stakes are immense. The consequences are terrifying, and the world is waiting to see who blinks first.